Alright, DraftScience video. Yeah, I should do the light table and whatnot, but I don't know exactly what I want this one to be, a official video or just more of a conversational thing, and I also want to respond to some of this stuff. Pyrrho's an idiot. Anyway, so some of this will get to time dilation eventually, but the subject has me thinking, again. I just wanted to illustrate the theme here, when it comes to this velocity and inertia argument. And I've used this school of fish thing, but so I'll avoid that and I'll use some other analogies or some other way of explaining it. So the most important thing to understand is this idea, okay, that what force is. So it's this thing moving the speed of light, and I'm calling it a quanta. So you can say even a photon. So let's just use a photon as an example. The idea is that it's a bit of mass moving in a direction. And we can think of it as mass because it actually does things when it hits things. It actually does move electrons. I think that can be known as a fact. And it causes electricity in conductors. It does it heats surfaces. It causes effects because it has substance. But it only has substance when it hits something. It can't have substance any other way. So it's almost like a bullet in the sense that the bullet hits you, it really means something. If it goes in front of you, you might not even see it. And that's sort of like light. You can't see light go by. Even in laser beams, and when people think they see the laser beam, they're really seeing the light reflecting. They're seeing light that's not in the beam anymore. They're seeing photons that left the beam as they reflected off atoms in the atmosphere. They reflected off dust and bounced into their eye. So the bullet didn't keep going. They didn't see the bullet. The bullet turned and went into their eye. Kind of an idea. So this is mass, and it has light moves in any kind of direction, but it only lives in one dimension. It's a completely one-dimensional bit of mass. So that's the way to think of all the forces. Magnetism, gravity, the nuclear forces, all virtual photons in physics, is to think of them as single mass of one, moving the speed of light in a vector. That's it. And it just can't be affected any other way. Forces don't affect forces. That's superposition. The original concept of superposition is this idea that I've tried to explain. But if you have two objects, and let's just say they're plus and minus, let's just make them charged to make it easy, and they're producing a field like a light bulb. The idea is the light doesn't mix. So if this was yellow and this was blue, there wouldn't be green in here. This wouldn't mix. It can only be mixed when something material comes in here and assesses what this force is and then assesses what this force is. It feels the two forces individually and it mixes them. But the forces themselves don't interact in any way whatsoever. They're invisible to each other. They retain their identity until mass shows up to figure out that's a +3 and that's a -1. The mass does the equal sign thing. It does the plus and the equals. It provides the functions. Alright, well that's another way of saying it. Well anyway, so you start off with this one idea. So here's your one-dimensional, one mass, right? One mass in one dimension. Alright, so then you're going to have mass in two dimensions. And I'm thinking electrons actually and protons might be doing this. This might be the nature of polarization. So polarization might be the idea that electrons are in this plane. That is, they're a circle, okay, in this plane, turned on edge. So, and that a proton would be a circle turned on this edge. So you can say, I mean, it's kind of hard to draw it in the appropriate dimensionalization. But the idea then would be is that the force emanating from this thing would be like a spiral, so it's coming out of these edges. And likewise here, it's only coming out of these edges. And so when this interacts, the only force that'll ever hit this is the force coming out of the front, the very edge. The only force this could hit, in something would be its very edge. And the rest of the force would only affect other things in the same dimension. So electrons would aggressively affect electrons because most of their force would be emanating in the same dimension, where most of the force from the electron completely misses the proton, and most of the force from the proton completely emisses the electron, because they're oriented in different dimensions. They share one dimension in common, and the other dimension is uncommon. So they're using all three dimensions, but neither one of them exists in all three dimensions. So this might be a possibility. And it would also create lots of opportunity for extravagant relationships that create the periodic table of elements, because you could obviously have all kinds of interesting relationships between the electrons and the protons in terms of balanced equations. You could have this arrangement, or you could have the two electrons could be at these arrangements. There could be lots of ways where you can create balance, because you're changing these dimensions, and it also creates a new geometry that would create this idea of having something in common, shared electrons. It all becomes a little more easily visualizable when you have these extra features of being able to change planar angles in the three dimensions. But see, again, it's hard to draw three dimensions. But so you could sort of understand that if this was true, okay, that these things would live in two dimensions. That is, they would exist in left and right and back and forward, but they wouldn't do the up and down thing, or some other collection of those two. And so they would have abilities to move in two dimensions. That is, have a velocity in two dimensions. So the electron could, theoretically, okay, it could be moving both this way and this way. So it could be going both a little bit right and a little bit backward. So it could have two vectors of velocity, momentum. And those would add up to a, something diagonal to those two vectors. And so that could be an example of a two-dimensional mass, that has and electrons would be made out of maybe 1,000,000 quanta, 1,000,000 of the photon masses. And they're held together. Again, remember, the original theory is, let's go back to the original theory drawing. Let's see, it should be in this pile. If I'm lucky, I should have looked for it ahead of time. Sorry about that. I got so many pieces of paper here. Let's see, come on. It's got to be here, I think. I imagine. I would hope. It's got to be in this little pile here somewhere. Come on. Come on, baby. There's some arrows here. Alright, so it starts off with that active field thing. Just a big field. And the end result of that field is that everything's going to have stuff coming towards it, just like a light bulb. And that's the pressure that's holding all these little things together. As soon as they try to get out, they hit something. They try to get out, they hit something. They try to get out, they hit something. They just keep going back and forth because of the pressure. The opposite light bulb effect that is created by the quantum pressure of the universe. And so in a sense you can kind of get the idea that, yeah, there's stuff trying to get out in my two dimensions. And then all I have to do is combine the electron and the proton, and now I'm moving in all three dimensions. There's arrows moving in all three dimensions, and the force is pushing them all together, and blah 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 blah. So that's sort of a way of thinking about it, to understand what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the fact that matter is this three-dimensional thing. So it's got arrows going in the three dimensions. And what's happening when it gets velocity, when it moves in a direction, is a larger percentage of its arrows end up going that way. And to do that, a fewer percentage are going this other way. So it loses dimensionality in these perpendicular dimensions, and it becomes more and more just one-dimensional. And so by the time you're going the speed of light, you're not matter anymore. You're force. You're actual photons now. You're quanta moving like a laser beam. You've become energy. You've become quanta again. You don't have any material structure. Now the argument with time dilation is that, so let's understand again, this material form has all of these other dimensions, and what happens is as it has velocity, it's like updating registers in a computer or something. All of these elements are going this way, and even the ones going that way, but theoretically they're taken care of by the stream you're moving into. So these you don't need anyway, because the flow, your extra velocity means you are running into more stuff going this way, so you don't even need those pieces anymore. Those will be automatically satisfied. But regardless, the point is that you can understand that as this thing's moving, right, so all these pieces are moving the speed of light, and what happens is it all has to get averaged out. So if this thing's moving 10 miles an hour, it means that, say, it has 10 extra going this way, and it has to spread the speed of light across all of these pieces and move them all up 10 miles an hour. It has to move the ones going the wrong way. And I've sort of explained that before, but that's essentially the essence of time dilation if you think about it. Because what has to happen is they have to stop doing this for a second, and they have to do this for a second. So they have to update in a new position. So they essentially have to stop existing going this way. They have to exist going this way for a microsecond, and then they can go back to doing this again. And that's essentially what's happening on the inside of these electrons and protons, is there's a constant updating of the other arrows. Constantly. That's what they're doing when they're going through that center point, probably, is they're constantly spreading the momentum in one way, they're converting it into another way, and then they, little piece at a time, they just take everything that's moving, one this way, and they just say, time out, go this way for a little tiny bit, and then go back to doing this. And that's time dilation. So if there's any mechanism inside the atom, like nuclear decay, the nuclear decay is going to be slowed down because the process that's creating it has to essentially stop for a little bit, move forward, then it can start again. That's time dilation. That's why the clocks don't work. It's because they have to be broken for a moment. You have to turn the washing machine off, repair the pump, then turn it back on again. It's that kind of thing. It has to be turned off to update. Alright, so I think that's it's an easy way to understand the distinction between the fact that this is E equals mc squared. The matter is energy, and it's energy just confined, and it's energy in 3 dimensions. And the 3 dimensions, if you're going to move the matter, only part of the matter is already moving the right way. Most of the matter isn't moving the right way. Most of the fish, the quanta. And so they have to keep getting updated. And as you make the thing go faster and faster and faster, there's less stuff to update, if you can get my drift. And there's also less stuff that you could push on, because now you're becoming more and more invisible this way and more visible this way. You know, the point, the head, the place you're going is where all your mass is heading. That's why when something hits you, like a bullet, it has a tremendous impact, because all the mass now that used to be in 3 dimensions is being converted into the one dimension. And that's a very slow example. So you can just imagine when you convert all the energy in the human being into quanta going one way, it would be an incredible amount of energy. A tremendous number of little quanta, and that's what you see when a nuclear bomb blows up, is the release of all this polarized quanta, all the same kind moving the same way thing. But yes, you gain, it's not like we gain mass. So in Einstein's theory, he's saying, well, as we move matter faster, it gets heavier. No, it only gets heavier in the one dimension it's moving, because all of its force now is pointing in the one direction. And when you're measuring mass, when it's moving in all three dimensions, you're only measuring the mass going one way. When I put you on the scale, the only part of you that's getting weighed is the part of you moving down. The parts going this way and this way aren't getting weighed. So your real mass is much higher than your weight mass. Okay, that's why little tiny specks of nuclear material can make such a big mess. It's because they actually weigh so much more. It's the c squared part of mc squared. E equals mc squared. The c squared part is that there's a whole bunch of quanta that you're not going to weigh. Alright, yeah, I think that's probably a good enough way to say this. But really just to understand that weight or mass, it's all just about that. Like I said, the mass of one is the ton. That's the one. One dimensional, one direction. Two dimensions, you can have two directions. Three dimensions, you can have three vectors of momentum. Well, actually 6 if you want to count left, right. I'm just saying there's 6 facets and 3 dimensions. Okay. So I think that's probably what I wanted to do with that. But yeah, I think there's something to work with there. The idea that polarization might be this physical reality of just dimensionality. It actually might be that polarization is frisbees. I mean, it really might be physically, that metaphor might actually be very close to the reality. That electrons function like galaxies. They're flat. You know, electrons and protons. They're flat things, pancakes. And depending on how the pancakes interact with each other, most of their force will be felt or not felt. If they're on the same plane, they feel all of each other's force, most of it. And if they're not on the same plane, they feel a tiny percentage of the force. And it's only straight line force then. They don't get anything that's not on the straight plane. So anyway, it could explain a lot, like why you're able to get electrons into nucleuses by forcing them to behave a certain way. And so the argument kind of would be is that if you can get the electron and you can push it in exactly a straight line or exactly a crooked line, let's say if you're off the center, if you're not heading for the proton, you can get the electron close. But if you head right for the proton, you can't get it close because the head-on energy is strong enough to repel. But anyway, that's a whole nother. Don't want to get into all that. So, alright, so this time dilation thing, let's go back to the bullet argument. So, Pyrrho's argument is that, let's say I'm traveling just 1 foot an hour slower, okay, than a bullet. He's arguing essentially that the bullet's still going to go the speed of bullets ahead of me. That even though I'm going just 1 foot an hour slower, I won't watch the bullet just go a little bit faster than me. little tiny bit every second. Just gets a little tiny bit ahead of me because I'm just going a little tiny bit slower. No, because bullets are special, somehow bullet will go ahead of me at the normal bullet speed. And that an observer watching would see me going the speed of bullet and see the bullet going twice the speed of bullet. Alright, so it's like two observers. If I have two people on a bicycle and they go two separate directions at the speed of light. This was the original argument me and Pyrrho argued about. I mean, to me it's just obvious. But there's two things. They leave at the speed of light. As they do that, by normal perception, if you had an observer stayed in the middle, he would see this guy get shorter by a set amount, and this guy gets shorter by a set amount from this perspective. That's just like light bulbs. The further you walk away, the dimmer the light bulb gets. Now if I walk twice as far away, that is, I move twice as much distance in the same amount of time, that is, I don't stay here, I move at the speed of light in the opposite direction, I'm going to see this guy get twice as small, twice as fast. That's going to be the implication. Now if something's getting twice as small, twice as fast, it's going to look like it's moving twice as fast. It's going to look like it's going, if the speed of light makes it this big in a second, it's going to get this big in a second, and it's going to have every appearance to be twice as far away. It is actually going to be twice as far away. The distance is real. And the distance has the real implication. And you can't get around it. There's no way from here I could look back at him and see him as if he only traveled this much distance. I have to see him as if he traveled the full distance. He can't look any other way than like he's moving twice the speed of light from my frame, from my perception. There's no other way I can see him shrinking in time. Now, what confuses these conversations is this stupid thing about clocks and them not working. Not working clocks can't change any of this. Not working clocks doesn't change. Again, if I'm moving, I might as well use the analogy of light. I mean, look, we're saying that, both Einstein and me agree you can't move matter the speed of light, but for completely different reasons. Because matter won't survive the trip, is my reason. But anyway, the point is if I'm moving 99.99999% the speed of light, I can't shine a flashlight and have the light leave the flashlight and go ahead of me at any kind of rapid speed. It just can't do it. Because I'm going the speed of light in exactly the same direction. There's no, if I'm going the speed of light in this direction and I start light here, I make some new light, the new light is going exactly the speed of light also. We have to stay in parallel with each other. I'm going the speed of light, it's going the speed of light. There's no way I can see it go away from me. It can't go away from me. It's impossible. And if I make my speed a little tiny, tiny, tiny bit less than the speed of light, I'll see the light just go, he'll just barely move. And this is if I could see light. Obviously I can't see light. But we're saying if the light had a flag sticking out of it and I could see the flag where the light was, the first ton, the first ton of the ray of light, and there was a little flag on it, I would see the little flag moving very, very, very slowly. And there's no other way to see it. Because you can't go, nothing can travel faster in that direction. You can only go in that direction the speed of light. The light can't go faster, I can't go faster, nothing can go faster. It just can't do it. There's no way it can do it. So all this frame crap is just crap. But you can't, and so this is another one, these stupid things they do. They have these trains going, you know, the speed of light in opposite directions and shit. When you shine light across and you're moving, let's say you were moving exactly the speed of light, you know, just for the joke value of it. So you're going this way, the speed of light, and you shine light outside, you know, perpendicular. If you're moving the speed of light, then for every inch you move this way, okay, for every inch you move this way, the light is going to be disappearing. So every inch you go forward, this light is disappearing, is leaving your vision. So as the light is moving, so in 1 second, this light photon is now this far, you're this far. And it just keeps moving away with each second. You can't, it'll keep going across, but it'll never hit this train. You'll never be able to hit it. You would have to shoot the light, you know, from a point. Let's see, where would you have to shoot it from? I mean, you'd have to shoot it from way in the. Well, you couldn't shoot it from the future. You just can't do it because yeah, you're not in the same. You're not in this ever going to be in the same frame, the absolute frame. You've already broken any absolution by moving the speed of light. You're already out of the time dimension. You've maxed out time, and so you can't possibly relate to anything else because you don't exist in the same dimension anymore. You're not. You've maxed out the function. You're dead to the rest of the universe. Yeah, because you can't have a perpendicular dimension. You're done. You're done interacting with the universe. You can only interact with it in the dimension you're moving in at the speed of light. And that's it. You can't interact in any other dimension. It's impossible. Yeah. So, yeah, so the point is that force can't carry momentum. So if I'm moving that way and I shoot light out this way, the light's going that way. It doesn't have my momentum. It can't go the speed of light with me or even 50 miles an hour with me. It can't go anything with me. Whatever it does, it's like it was newly created and it has no connection to the source whatsoever. It doesn't matter what the source is doing. The light will always just cover a certain amount of distance in a certain amount of time. And it's always going to do it in a straight line. And so it just doesn't care about where I'm going, or where I'm moving, or what frame I'm in. Any of that crap. It's meaningless. Alright. Now, Holiday played this stupid. He played three clips of videos. He's already posted the entire video, so now he's being redundant. And he's got this Nema guy talking about time dilation. I don't know whether I should bother playing that clip because it's just, again, he's saying he can break spontaneous. That spontaneous is a false concept. This kind of rhetoric. It's just, I mean, not only they use the word spontaneous, but no, I mean simultaneity. So he's destroyed the concept. No, there's no such thing as simultaneous. I mean, that's how far they're taking this nonsense, this crap, this bullshit. Everything in this universe is physical. Now, what I mean by physical is there's a clump of light, the photon, the ton, and it moves it. And it has frequency, and it moves the speed of light. And when it's a graviton, it doesn't have frequency, and when it's a magneton, it's polarized. But, you know, no point in going through those details. But the point is, it's a quanta. It's a clump. And everything else is made of these clumps. And there's nothing non-physical. Everything is made of a ball on this pool table, or a checker on this board. There's no forces of radiation that isn't a checker. You can't get any smaller than the checkers. The checkers are what everything's made out of, and the checkers are clumps. It's a physical universe. There's no spooky effect. There's no ESP energy. There's nothing else. There's just these physical things conveying their existence onto something else, influencing it by hitting it, by joining it. By interacting with it physically. Okay, yeah. It's all physics. There's no unphysics. There's no Heisenberg. There's no ambiguity. It's a hard, solid universe. Even if the quanta is made out of Tinkerbell poo, it just doesn't matter. It's quanta. It's one. It's never a half. It's never 3/4. It's never 1.7. It's always just a 1. It doesn't get any smaller. Doesn't get subdivided. Doesn't move slower. Doesn't move faster. It's a 1 moving in a dead straight line until it hits something. Alright, I really don't want to. I'm just so sick of this pyrrho shithead. Alright, so, I mean, but this video is just so bad. I mean, he just, you know, he just lies on top of his lying. I mean, you make the accusation you're lying, and then you just lie some more. I mean, it's just amazingly low character human being. So anyway, horrible. Scum.
Shine a flashlight. And the light would go away relative to you at the speed of light.
Okay, so there, let's play it again. I mean, he's saying it quite directly. I think it's just preposterous rubbish. Clearly no evidence of this nonsense, but it creates huge paradoxes. You just can't get around the paradox of it. That if you did have an observer who wasn't moving the speed of light going this way, he would have to see the flashlight beam moving twice the speed of light. If you're moving almost the speed of light, he has to see the flashlight beam then moving the speed of light plus whatever your speed is. He can't see it any other way.
So let's use 73/4 of the speed of light as an example. If you are going 3/4 of the speed of light, you can, I believe, shine a flashlight. And the light would go away relative to you at the speed of light.
Right. So if we're using the analogy of it's a bicycle rider and he's going to get smaller and smaller as he goes into the distance, his argument is that if I was standing still or I'm moving 3/4 the speed of light, he's going to recede from me in the direction I'm moving. It's going to look exactly the same. Whether I'm moving or I'm not moving, the guy gets small at exactly the same rate. How can that make any sense? How can it make any sense?
Light out of our flashlight. The best I might be able to do is radio waves, but I'm not going to be able to shoot anything that can move any.
Yeah, well, even the radio wave argument I was making was wrong because it's still, you know, even if I compressed it and it was cosmic rays, they still can't get away from me. They still can't perpetuate away from me. If I'm moving almost the speed of light, they'll just barely be moving.
Okay, when I talk about light, I'm talking about electromagnetic radiation.
Well, whatever. Electromagnetic radiation doesn't mean anything. So let's just say light and photon are the same thing. But yes, electromagnetic is just a big pile of made-up mush. There's no evidence of any magnetic light. Go show me a light doing something magnetic, and then go ahead and show me light doing something electrical, because it doesn't do either one.
And not visible light with your fucking eyes picked out as the important light. but all.
Whereas we're talking about tons, or speed of photons, speed of any force. This applies to any force. If we had a graviton gun, or a magneton gun, or any force in the universe, all the forces move the speed of light, so it doesn't matter which one we're shooting, it's the same rules apply.
Light, meaning all electromagnetic radiation.
Be faster than I'm moving. So if I'm going at half the speed of light, whatever I'm going to shoot ahead of me is only going to leave where I am. Okay, it's going to leave at the speed of light, and I'm going to be moving half its speed. So it's not going to be the same distance away from me if I was standing still.
Well, that's where you're totally wrong.
Right. So again, he's saying the light can somehow escape me, even though we're both going the same direction. I'm going 70 miles an hour, let's say, and let's say that's the speed of light, and he's going 70 miles an hour, but somehow his 70 miles an hour has him shooting 70 miles an hour ahead of me. How can it do that? How can, if I'm going as fast as a bullet, how can the bullet just say, no, I'm a bullet, I always go faster than you. Even when you're going just as fast as me, I always go faster than you. So I'm leaving at bullet speed, even though I'm going bullet speed.
Einstein proved this, and it's not.
Well, again, he didn't prove anything. This is just such a crock of shit. This is the rhetoric that just doesn't go anywhere. I make the accusation that your evidence is weak, and you're claiming absolute proof. You have no right to use the word proof. This is not a proven trial. You don't have a big pile of evidence for conviction here. You've got little scattered pieces of circumstantial evidence, tiny little threads of circumstantial evidence, and you are talking as if you have fingerprints, DNA evidence, that you got the whole fucking deal, and a confession. You don't have any of that crap. All you have is a bunch of confirmation, collective confirmation bias.
Because he was a cool guy, so we believe him. No, it got demonstrated. It has been demonstrated.
Again, so none of this has been demonstrated anywhere. So again, this is another claim that I'm opposing something that is a demonstrated fact, like a round world. His evidence is so secure, and he has no evidence. You've never done any of these experiments in real life. You've never shown a flashlight moving the speed of light. It's just a big pile of crap. You have any evidence of this shit.
It has the distortion of space and time.
Well, again, the distortion of space and time is your claim. Obviously, that's a claim I'm protesting and say there is no time dimension, there's no space dimension. You can't distort either one of these stupid things. Time is a function, and it's a solid function, and the thing that's not solid is matter. Matter falls apart. You fuck it up, it falls apart. And that's what time dilation is. Evidence of matter having a bad day.
Yes. Have been demonstrated.
So again, he keeps saying it's been demonstrated. This is not arguable. You cannot contest our voluminous evidence, which is no evidence. I mean, the fact that you have to adjust atomic clocks on satellites is not evidence. I have an explanation for that, as pointed out. That if I tell you to dance, and then I tell you to dance moving to your right, you can't dance as fast. And the same thing happens to a decaying atom. If the decaying atom is moving really fast, it can't decay as fast. Whoa! Crazy thinking.
Right, you could take a clock, put it on a rocket, make it go 10,000 miles an hour, and bring it down and you'll see that the clock's drifted, whereas if you just...
Yeah, so, and again, how does that disprove any other explanation of why that happened, besides what you claim it to be, which is somehow the clock went into a super hyper dimension, and the clock is actually accurate. It's not a broken clock. It's reading real time. It's not miscalculating time because it's been materially broken. No, it was an accurate clock.
leave those two exact same clocks on the ground, they don't drift because they're accurate enough.
Because they're not being broken by excessive velocity.
Yeah, you deny data. You're not interested.
So again, this is your accusation, and it's just a gross lie, where you have not one shred of evidence that I deny the existence of time dilation. I explain it with a different theory, okay, and one that is not in any way inconsistent with any of the fucking evidence. So again, you're just lying that I'm denying the evidence. I'm using the evidence to defend my own theory because it's perfectly consistent with my theory.
Interested in any data that
I'm not interested, even though I pointed it out. I explained how, well, you know, the irony is that the fast satellites, they actually have to have their clock adjusted in the opposite direction because we're the ones moving faster. Because we're in the heavier gravity. And the heavier gravity means we're moving much faster. That is, we're bouncing, we're releasing on the surface of the Earth. So we're traveling a lot more distance than the satellite in the weak gravity. Even though the satellite's moving faster than we are, the satellite's jiggling less. So its wave line is much smaller in terms of the distance. Irony much?
you don't seem to understand that physics wanted this common sense kind of thing and concrete rules.
Oh, yeah, whatever. No, of course it didn't. Like I said, we can go back 300 years ago and we can just see how particle gravity was dismissed without even trying to make it work. Push versus pull. They didn't want to hear about none of this push crap.
Cool thing you want, but they had to face the data. The data you...
Yeah, well, again, you say they had to face data. I say they were just so horny. Heisenberg, it gives us free will again. Oh, thank God. We can make the universe unstable and we can make everything mean something again because we can keep our fairy tales. We can keep believing in gingerbread. And then maybe people will be able to make fake dimensions that we can hope for, like heavens. Little heaven fake dimensions where, I'm a completely different person in the other dimension. I'm Cleopatra. You turned it into a religion.
Deny instead. That's your approach, is to deny the data.
Okay, so again, the accusation. So I'm just saying you're a grotesque, lying piece of scum. Prove it. Show me the data I'm denying. Beyond spooky action experiments that have no credibility, essentially, show me the data I'm denying. Demonstrate the data I'm denying. Show it, liar. You're a fucking liar.
That's why I can predict that you'll never try to test your system.
What do you mean I'll never try? How exactly do I do that in the first place? But I am thinking of ways you can do it. I mean, one of the tests might be is the whole thing of, they actually do have the old Saturn probe, outside the plane of the planar solar system. And my speculation would be that gravity will be weaker out there, and I think it is. But yeah, the only way to test it is, they got these new satellites that are going to be shooting lasers across to each other. That might be a way to do it, because you could detect an absolute frame once you get off of a moving frame. So once you're not on the surface of the Earth, you might actually be able to do a real absolute frame interferometer.
Because your system is being designed not to fit the current data.
Okay, prove it. I mean, it's just such a lie. It's designed not to fit the current data. What data is it designed not to fit? I've only overtly said to you, there's a concept called mock gravity that fits all of the data, and it only didn't work because Feynman's silly raindrop theory, okay, that the ultramundane particles were like rain, and as you ran into the rain, you'd hit more rain. Yeah, well, I got rid of that crap.
That you don't like.
So again, prove it, or admit the accusation is true, that you're just a compulsive liar. You're a fucking liar.
Oh, is that a lie? No, that's my opinion.
No, you just lied. It's not an opinion. It was an accusation. Your accusation was that I have contrived something not to fit the data, when I have done exactly the opposite. I've come up with a theory that is completely consistent with the data, and I feel the obligation that my theory must fit the data. If there is some data it doesn't fit, I will concede, well, that's a problem. And if it's not fixable, then it's broken and it's not usable. But there's no challenge like that from you, because you're just a liar.
And it happens to be more well factually founded than your opinion.
Or backed off anything.
Yeah, so we'll just let that sit. He says it's a fact that you can shine light from a flashlight when you're moving 3/4 the speed of light, and the light will leave you at the speed of light. And so essentially the light will achieve distances from you just as equal to those as if you were standing still. That's his established fact as a professional.
Always been an absolute. I've never backed off. Where's the evidence I backed off? Where? I've always never believed that there's any such thing as any dimension or any fucking goddamn change in anything or any. You go through some sort of.
Here he's changing the subject.
No, how am I changing the subject? I'm making the argument that we had an argument about two bicycle riders moving away from each other at the speed of light, and I was making the argument that there's no way this bicycle rider, can't see this guy as being twice as small as he should be in the same amount of time. There's a certain amount of time at the speed of light he should get a certain size, and he gets twice as small in half the time. Well, he gets half as small in the same amount of time, or in half the time he gets the right smallness, however you want to put that. But the point is, it has every appearance that I'm twice as far from the light bulb.
The issue was about the speed of light, and he just talked about the speed of light again, about in this absolute reference frame, which is what the Michelson-Morley experiment really proves. There is no...
Okay, so this is another claim he's making, right? So this is one of his professional claims, that Michelson-Morley wasn't intended to try to find the ether, because Maxwell and a lot of famous people believed in the ether. Most of these guys believed in ether. And this wasn't an effort to find the ether. No, this was an effort to find an absolute frame. And so to find the absolute frame, they put an experiment on the surface of the Earth, rotating at both the emitter, the reflector, and the receiver are all moving on the train, and they think that is the absolute frame. They think they have a reference in the absolute frame. So now they can tell if there's an absolute frame because they have all their instruments on the train. Can't do that, retard.
There is only a medium that's at rest with every observer, right? If you're not...
Yes, there was nobody in that experiment. There was no observer who was in the neutral frame. There's no way you can measure the neutral frame when you don't have a reference in it.
Acceleration. Then when you shine a flashlight, the light goes away at the speed of light in your reference frame. That's the whole theory.
It's a piece of crap, right? So again, if you want to cling to that idiotic notion, I mean, it's on its face impossible. It can't possibly make sense. It automatically breaks the law of the constant. You've obviously just made the speed of light capable of going twice the speed of light by doing that. You've broken the rules. When you allow two things to go in the same direction, okay, and allowed one of them to somehow go a velocity plus, you can't do that. The speed of light plus.
Well demonstrated by data that you don't want to pay attention to.
Right, okay, what data? Again, the data I don't want to pay attention to. Another lie. Again, What data? I've only begged for you to give me a link to your fucking data. Give me a link to your fucking experiment that I can debunk. Go ahead, put your name on some kind of piece of shit that's on the internet so I can debunk it and insult you some more. Insult and point out what a lying, stupid, ignorant motherfucking cunt you are. But you don't even do that. You lack so much integrity. You have no integrity. You won't even put up one piece of evidence. You'll just keep promising about how, hey, jury, I got a ton of evidence. I got pictures of the guy. I got the knife. I got him holding the knife. I got all kinds of great evidence. But I'm never going to let you see any of it. You fucking liar.
Dude, so you're changing the subject to another thing entirely.
Now, nothing like that happened here. So again, another preposterous lie. I defended myself against his accusation that I was saying light was going twice the speed of light when it's exactly what he's saying. He's the one saying the flashlight light can go faster than me by the speed of light, even though I'm traveling 3/4 the speed of light. The light can go an extra speed of light ahead of me. He's the one breaking the fucking rules.
And people like watching you because you talk yourself into a frothing frenzy.
Yes, because you're a liar. I don't like being lied about, you fucking liar.
That's what they must like, for some reason or other.
Well, I don't even see this like part, but regardless of that, yeah, I guess a few of them harass you for some sort of backup to your fucking claims, and then you post idiotic comments. I mean, I should read his comments on the 2-slit experiment because they're really quite hilarious, so maybe I'll get to that in the next video. But yeah, you're a fucking lying idiot.
Change in frames? No, never, ever, ever. So just lie, lie, lie.
You didn't even talk about what I was talking about. You said here.
So again, show me somebody, one of you fuckers who's going to defend this fucking lying piece of shit. Why don't you point out in there where I changed the subject in any way whatsoever? All I said was, I'm not the one saying light's going twice the speed of light. You are, dumbass.
There's X, Y, Z, but I wasn't saying the opposite of that. But it's a lie because you're just you're like Trump, really, with your rhetoric. If you can call someone a lie, then there's a rhetorical effect, and da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, right. Unlike Trump, I'm willing to bet my guts on it, motherfucker. All right? You're making accusations you have no evidence for. I'm saying you have no evidence. All right? I'll fucking gut myself in my front fucking yard if you can defend what you're saying. But you can't because you're a liar.
Sycophants. And I'm not interested in that game. That's why this is...
Yeah, well, I'd be interested in fucking having an honor code here. Why don't you put up $10,000, okay? Let's put $10,000 on your fucking lies.
Idiots, are you going to talk about... I'm going to have to fast forward into where you get the part of my video where I'm talking physics. There's no absolute reference for you.
Says you.
Yeah, again, that's my problem, where you're talking physics. That's right, because most of the video was nothing. It was garbage.
And you're wrong, and you're stupid.
Right, says me. So just fucking try to memorize. It says me.
Who cares? It's Michelson, idiot. So
Yeah, well, you keep citing evidence that isn't evidence. There's no evidence in Michelson-Morley proving the non-existence of an absolute quiet frame in the universe. A non-velocity frame.
You didn't say it right.
It's Michelson, if you can't say it right, that must be... Well, I still had to perform the experiment, Gary.
Well, yeah, that's a great comeback. You know, I can't remember the name of the experiment. That's how seriously I took it.
Morley, not Michelson Morley, but who the fuck cares about that, right? None of these details are important.
No, I was taught it was Michelson.
And that experiment has to do with ether.
So he was taught that way. So again, I'm supposed to have all kinds of confidence in your education when they can't even get a guy's name right. So what? I should call you like Nero482, and that'll be good enough. I'll write in the history. But hey, there was this guy on YouTube, Nero482. What an asshole. I mean, well, I guess that would help you out because, yeah, then you won't be properly identified.
Not to do with the speed of light. And obviously,
it does have to do with ether. But the whole point is that the ether...
No, the whole point is, yeah, so it was explicitly done for one purpose, the ether argument, and instead of that he says, no, that really wasn't the purpose. No, we were going to prove there was no such thing as a quiet frame on Earth by putting stuff on a moving planet and having absolutely nothing in the quiet frame, and then we'll just make accusations about the quiet frame from our moving train. Well, we have no access to the ground. We can't see it. It's midnight. It's pitch black. We can't see the ground. We're on the moving train. And we're just going to tell you the ground doesn't exist.
Was supposed to be an absolute reference frame, genius.
What was supposed to be? Nothing in the experiment was in the absolute frame. How can you detect something when you have no sensor in the proper frame? You can't scope up somebody's ass unless you have a camera on the end of the scope, idiot.
And the fact that it wasn't there, it was like the last man standing got knocked down. There is no...
So again, this is like the whole two-slit thing all over again. This is the nail in the coffin. Michelson Morley proves there's no quiet frame in the universe. Because we did an experiment on a spinning, moving, hurling planet. And that proves it.
No absolute reference frame. If there was any kind of absolute reference frame, then you should study that experiment.
yeah, I should study it. You can't even say it right. You can't even get the guys' names right, and you're going to accuse me of being ignorant on the subject. No, I think you're the one who doesn't understand. If the detector's moving, the emitters moving, and the mirrors are moving, you can't establish the non-existence of a quiet frame that way. You actually have to have some piece of the experiment in the quiet frame, asshole.
The point is that by having a light of a certain wavelength bouncing around in different directions, and you're on this Earth, the speed of the Earth, it should cause you would be able to see this slowdown.
Right. The emitter is emitting, from its wrong speed, and then the detector's detecting, so it's redshifting exactly the opposite from the detector, right? So anything red shifted will end up getting blue shifted on the way back. It's a zero-sum game. It's circular. You can't measure it that way. Because all the pieces are in the wrong frame.
Talking about. In one direction, light would travel one speed, and in another it would travel another speed, according to your measurements, because you were traveling.
You can't measure it that way. Your rulers are moving. You can't measure light with moving rulers.
And catching up with the light. And that's not what happens. Instead, when you catch up with light, the light still shoots away at light speed, but the wavelength...
Yeah, right. So you catch up to... You're moving as fast as... I run, like there's a bullet flying, and I start running really fast, and I run as fast as the bullet, and literally, it's going to happen. The bullet's going to look at me and say, "You can't do that!" And it would leave the fastest as a bullet. It would say, I'm not allowed to run as fast as the bullet. Alright, anyway, enough. The camera's probably going to fail, so let's not push our luck. But God, what a fucking compulsive liar. So maybe I'll come back and do later to do some more of this, but what's the point, right? I mean, there's just so many lies, and he's just intending to be a slanderer and to essentially defecate in this rude manner on everything I've done and everything I've said by misinterpreting, perverting, distorting, never accurately paraphrase a single thing that I've made as arguments. He's just a compulsive, weaselly liar defending his silly religion. And it is silly. Profoundly silly. And all of these people should be embarrassed for how aggressively they're defending silly Heisenberg half-dead cat bullshit. I can shine flashlights twice the speed of light. Fuck you, you can't.